A few people have reached out to me and asked about the Lange Odysseus and my further thoughts on this watch. It came out about 6 months ago, and it was quite the subject of debate. It still is to this day, but it was spoken about a lot on this platform. And as of this point in time, they have just released the watch in white gold on a rubber and a leather strap, so that will be discussed in more detail. I think before getting into the discussion, I should preface this by saying that I applaud Lange. This is not a brand that I've just suddenly picked up on. It's one that I've been trying my hardest to study and learn about for a long period of time. And I truly believe that this brand is one of the greatest watchmakers in this space. They haven't necessarily received the same amount of attention as Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe at this point, probably because they're much more traditional in the way that they are styled. But really, I mean, when it comes to learning about these pieces and the work that goes into them, you appreciate them fully. So this discussion, this criticism, is coming from someone who truly appreciates the brand. And why is that? Well, it's a brand that has been able to fully create its own language at this point. The Lange 1 was the establisher, but they have since been able to really capitalize on the Germanic styling of their pieces. You look at a watch from them and you know immediately that it is Lange. And only Lange would use this kind of approach. German simplicity, incorporating elements from vintage pocket watches, following Bauhaus motifs. So we jump to the Odysseus, looking at it again. A piece that was introduced on a steel bracelet, steel case, with a brand new movement, automatic with a Date Complication. Immediately when you look at it, you can see that it is Lange all the way through. You can see that the dial especially communicates the design that they have always used. In a way, you think Zeitwerk when you see those separate windows and that subdial at the base. A very relatable handset, use of batons, stepping to the dial, use of texture. Everything that we would expect to see is in the right place. And then if we are to look at the case and the bracelet integration, the case for sure is Lange. What's impressive is that practically every Lange watch has the exact same case styling. Some models have thicker lugs than others, but on the whole, they look relatively the same. So then again, you see the case styling is similar, but the bracelet was really the divisive element that made people question this watch and its styling. I, for one, was definitely on the fence with the bracelet. I think it could have been a lot tighter, a bit simpler, to integrate more neatly with the case and the dial. So the new model arrives with a white gold case, gorgeous slate grey dial with so much more texture to it, and a rubber strap. Frankly, it looks terrific. It really looks good. It makes the piece look more dress-oriented, which is much more in line with what Lange does. The piece looks way more toned down and subtle, but also manages to hold onto that sporty elegance. It's very attractive for that reason. And the use of the slate grey dial is also an excellent choice. So this new variant of the Odysseus has received a lot more praise. People really appreciate it because it addresses areas that many people complained about with the first edition. But here's the thing. I close my eyes and I think of the brand. I think of the image that it has been able to create. I think of its many watches in its line, and just how its design identity has been copied at this point by so many others. And I do not for a second think about the Odysseus as a watch that belongs to this family. The saddest thing of all is that it's a watch that I am never drawn back to. And I think this is important to highlight for anyone who's interested in a brand. If the watch doesn't continually call you back, keep you engaged, keep you fascinated, wanting you to look at some other element, then it's not a watch for you. When I think of Lange, I think Lange 1, I think Saxonia, I think 1815. When I look at an 1815 chronograph, it's a watch that never gets old. The design is timeless, it's simple, elegant, functional. It harnesses every word out of Lange's dictionary. When I think of the Lange 1, I think asymmetry, I think golden ratio. It's a dress watch, built and integrated around classical styling that was adopted and used 200 years ago. The Lange Odysseus aims to change that. And yes, like I said, you look at the watch and you see the elements that you can relate to, that look like they belong to the Lange name. But then the thought hits me, why not just look at your original pieces, like the Lange 1? Make it out of stainless steel. Incorporate a stainless steel mesh bracelet into the mix. Possibly look at the water resistance rating. Possibly modify a few details on the dial to give it more of a sporty appeal. And leave it there. Why go to the lengths to produce a sports watch that doesn't necessarily line up with the brand's real, true identity? And the big argument that I'm sure many people will bring up is that Patek and the Nautilus, AP and the Royal Oak. Of course, those watches came out in the 70s and are since some of the best-selling models from the family, for sure. But did Lange really need to go to that level as well? Did they really feel it necessary to share the limelight with those names? And that is the biggest conundrum from my perspective. It's just a watch that to me never draws me back. But I can sit and look at Lange 1s, 1815s, Saxonias any day of the week and never grow tired of them. This watch just doesn't do the same thing. But in saying that, to each their own. If I was asked to help modify this watch in any way, shape or form, I would ditch the solid bracelet and equip the watch with a basic mesh-styled bracelet that has been used on various pieces from their line before. Lange has had quite a past of using mesh bracelets and beads of rice bracelets with their pieces, and that combination on this watch would look terrific. But the Odysseus will continue to be divisive. Opinions about this watch will always fly. No doubt, the technology that's in this piece is incredible. From a watchmaking front, it's a masterpiece. But aesthetically, and viewing the family as a whole, it could be tightened up in a few places. One huge commendation about this line, the Odysseus, this new configuration, white gold, slate grey dial, leather strap, rubber strap, looks fantastic. It speaks more to the dress watch. But when you sit back and think about the brand as a whole, does this watch come to mind first?